Alright, so having looked at droppables, we're going to look at two of the jQuery UI widgets before we make our code player project. So the first one is Accordion, and let's have a quick look first off and see what that means, and then I'll challenge you to make one yourself. So accordions are pretty simple. They look like this. They're a way of condensing a large amount of information into a relatively small space, and then the user can select which bit they're interested in reading at any one time. So they're quite useful. Our challenge then is just to recreate this more or less, but do it ourselves with our own text. So I'm going to give that to you. Go for it. All right, let's have a look then. See how they've done it. So the jQuery looks pretty straightforward. We just apply the accordion to the accordion div, and the div then contains as obviously an ID of accordion and then an h3 and then a div within it. And it looks like that's all we need. So let's try and recreate that structure. See if we can make it work. So we have a div ID of whatever we like, but accordion makes sense. And then within the accordion, we have an h3, which I'll just call title. And then we have a div with some content in it. I'm going to have some lorem ipsum, which you may remember is some Latin that we can use to generate some random text, which just makes our sample websites look good before our client has given us their website copy. All right, let's copy and paste that then. So we've got it a few more times, and let's have a look. Oh, that's very good. Of course, I've forgotten my bit of JavaScript here. Should be pretty simple. We just want to take the accordion element and apply the accordion function to it. And just before I run that, you might have noticed that I've managed to spell accordion wrong in each of those. Easily done, and would result in absolutely nothing happening because we have to spell the accordion function correctly. Let's take a look. All right, there we go. So it was indeed as simple as that. And with just one line of jQuery, we've got a really nice accordion effect there. It's worth speaking briefly about these styles. These are the default jQuery UI styles, but you can apply different styles using the jQuery UI themes. So you can see here, for example, they've applied the smoothness theme. And if you do a quick search for jQuery UI themes, there are a number of them out there that you can use, or you could actually start with something like this and create your own if you wanted something completely custom. Your final challenge then, before we move on to our code player project, is to create a sortable list using jQuery UI. Simple as that. Go for it. All right, hope you managed it. Let's see how we do it. It's up here where it says sortable. And very simply, we can just sort our elements into a certain order. I've actually used this in a few websites. It's a nice user interaction model. So let's have a quick look at the source. So we've got two instructions here. The first one makes sense. We're setting it to be sortable using the sortable function. And then we're doing the slightly strange disable selection. So let's firstly do things without that to see how it works, and then see why disable selection might be important. Okay, and then we've got a unordered list and a bunch of LIs with a bunch of spans and classes, which I don't think we need. So I'm going to try it without them. So let's do it under my accordion. We'll have a UL, again with an ID of sortable. And let's just put in some list items. I'll use my usual list items. Rob, Kirsten, Tommy, and Ralphie. All right, and then we just run our JavaScript or our jQuery. We're going to apply to the sortable div the function sortable. All right, let's refresh and take a look. So we've got a very normal looking list there, but we can indeed sort it. Wonderful. And I trust then that you could also extend that, and if you wanted something to happen when the user has resorted, then you could do that with a callback function, which you would find in the API documentation. Okay, so that's as far as we're going to go looking into the various different interactions and widgets, but there really are a bunch of very, very useful widgets here. The date picker, for example, is something that you've probably seen on several websites and is really useful. Autocomplete, that's something I mentioned again at the beginning of this chapter. That's a really useful thing to be able to do, and you can do it just straight away with jQuery UI. And feel free to have a click around and see how you might use some of these in the sites that you're working on. Brilliant. So that takes us to the end of our jQuery UI tour, and indeed to the jQuery section. So all that remains is to make what will probably be the biggest project so far, and that is Code Player. Let's find out what it is and how you're going to make it in the next video.